Toilet repair time. Had a leak last night. Came out of the back of the top sides of this tank. Dripped water down onto the floor, down the bathroom, down through the hallway and the other hallway. My wife started screaming. So I had a couple failures in here. But first of all, this piece adjusts the flush. This is the old piece. And when you install these, there's a couple brands of them. They always seem to fail on this little tie wrap that goes on here. You put this over the center piece, put a piece of rubber, and I've always had the tie wrap come loose. Then this whole thing comes loose, then it won't stop running the water. But that's what happened on the what I thought was the first problem. This came loose, and I don't know, the water started going everywhere, shooting up. So I fixed that, but then I had another failure within hours. It was this piece. This is a Hydro Clean, and at first I thought it was this little contraption here. The water ended up, this was pointing up and the water was shooting up, hitting the base of the cover and dripping over the sides. I turned that down, and then this little hose that attaches to the centerpiece down here came off, and it was pointed up. I fixed that, put another tie wrap, and then this mechanism broke, and that was the last straw, where this little clip kept falling backwards here, and it wouldn't go up. It just stayed up all the way, and the water kept rising and rising. I finally realized it had to be pushed back, but it keeps coming loose. So I'm going to replace them and show you how to do that. It's a little bit much for technology for a toilet. Sometimes I wish it would have stayed with the old plunger and the big ball in the back, but this is what I have, and I have extra pieces I'm going to repair it with. So the first thing we'll do is put a new centerpiece back in. It's a little bit different shape. This is a Hydro Right model also. And there's two adjustments on these. You have this green adjustment. The green slider adjusts the water coming out of the bowl for number 2. And the blue slider goes up and down. And then the blue slider adjusts the amount of water you want coming out for number 1. Goes up and down. On the blue float on the side, that's the quick flush. It's number 1. It matches the single teardrop here, water drop here. So if that's up, it's less water. If it's down, it's more water. Right now I have it pushed all the way down. And the full flush, which is the green adjustment, again, less water down, more water up. And so we're going to try both of these all the way up with less water. See what happens. So you see the corresponding handle. It has a big one little water drop or two. So if you push one down, it'll flush a little bit. If you push both the 2 down and flush number 1, number 2. Kind of clever. First step is to twist this apart. And this slides on to the center pole. Sort of rubbery flange on the bottom, and it just sits in that hole. Make sure it's aligned correctly. Push down on it. It's in there snugly. And then if you have any space in here, you see I have some space. There's this little tapered cam, they call it. Just slide in here to get rid of some of that space. Makes this a little snugger. So it's sort of a universal. Okay. Push down. Then you take these little black rubber belts and slide it on here to hold it down. These things dissolve out over time. But that just kind of holds it in place. And the main thing that's going to hold in place is this tie wrap. Now I'm not going to use the tie wrap provided because it wears out and breaks. It's really thin. So I've got a thicker one from my toolbox that I'm going to put in here. thread it through. And push it down. Make sure everything's snug and tighten that up. Yeah, you can either try to push it with your fingers, see if there's any room to tighten it more, but that's pretty solid. And we'll trim the end off. Okay, got the center console in. Now we're going to take this in. It locks on these little wings right here. And we want this to be pointed to the front and side so we can get to them. So we'll turn this a little bit. So I got an adjustment right down here in the front and right over here on the side. Now I'm going to put the new handle on, and this is threaded backwards, so when you turn it to the right it's actually loosening from the nut perspective. Turn this backwards, counterclockwise. See, one flush, two flush. Okay. And this little handle attachment, they support two types. I guess if you have a different handle, one is like a push button, and one has got like a four-way cross. That's what the end of this handle has. So you just push this down. And it slides in there. Of course, now I've got this hanging. So let's turn it. Maybe do it upside down. Push the button, slide it on there. Okay. So that's going to control the mechanism in here for how much you flush. So you can get some pliers and tighten that up and make sure you have this at the horizontal level you want to have it at. Next step is to install the fill control flow. Tells it when to stop filling, floats up. So this has to fit in the tank through that hole in the bottom. So I push this down in here. It has to go down in there far enough so that's not going to hit the top of the tank. When I push this down, you can see there's clearance there. And so if you have to adjust that, there's a little twist here. Just grab it and twist it, and it's threaded to go in and out. It's about, there's 9 inches, there's 10 inches, maybe 10 1/4. And also, I can just measure it with the old unit, see where that washer's going to line up. So I need to come in a little bit more. That looks about right. Two things have to be performed. One is I'll put this through the bottom and come up with this little nut. Again, turn it in the opposite direction. Actually, that is clockwise, that's correct. To hold this on and make sure there's rubber seals. But then I have to also attach the water line to it on the bottom, to the bottom of this. And you can see the water line coming in has its own little nut on the end, and that'll go into the bottom here also. And that has to screw on after I have this attachment nut on. Let's push this in here. Still water in the bottom of this tank. Make sure you got a towel underneath it or a bucket. Give a good hand tighten. And we'll attach the water line. It's about an inch deep thread. Okay, attached. You can see there's not a lot of space in here when everything is attached. Everything gets real close. I do like putting this on before this in because this can be a little painful trying to wedge it in there. But everything's still working. And now this hose simply has to go right to here, and they give you a lot of extra hose. So you're going to have to rise it up and drop it down. The last one I had used this little clip so that the hose would just clip on here and then clip into the tank. Not a lot of strength to hold it on there, it would clip right onto here. This new one has a much bigger piece, so the hose is going to clip into here, and then I have this thing that opens up and will slide down on this tube to hold it in, so it's much more secure way to hold that little. This is where the water shoots out, so there'll be some pressure. Much more secure way to do it. So I cut this hose back some, push it on here, twist a little bit, make sure it gets on there nice, and then I'll slide this over this little. There we go. So this, you can feel where this is going to try to do a natural bend and curve. So when you get it assembled at this point, this top should be about 3 inches above the top of this, which is about right. And it's in the manual, you can look at that yourself. Now we're ready to make adjustments. And we want, when this fills up, we want the water to come to about a 1/2 inch below the center fill hole right here. 1/2 inch to 1 inch down. So if it comes over, it's going to constantly run, and not good. So we've got a couple adjustments. I said here also, there's 2 adjustments for how much water is actually used in the flush. And then we have 2 water adjustments here. One will control the flow of the water coming out, speed. And then this one, this little turn adjustment, will raise that little floater in there. So you can tell how much it has to come up to be able to get to a 1/2. Twist it one way or twist it the other. So another point to make on this little adjustment does make the water come in faster, but it also dictates how much water is going to go into the bowl itself. So you can see where the water is here. I'm not going to put a mark in the toilet. I'm going to turn this to the left, flush it. And so you have water filling in the bottom of this also, just to correct what I said, and going in here. So this is the water going into the bowl, and it also fills back here. Okay, quick flush. Yeah, so that didn't hardly do anything. That's not enough of a flush. Let's hold it down. That's definitely a quicker flush. That's probably enough, but you know, this is where my son hangs out, and I'm not sure if he's going to have the patience to hold that down, so I'm going to put a little bit more water on that. Go down a little bit. And notice how low the bowl is filling. I think we need a little more, so we're going to make this adjustment. Have more water come in. See it start, as this is still filling, it's starting to add more water into here. Okay, let's do a full flush. Okay, let's just summarize. We have 2 types of handles. One that's just a round end and one that's a cross end. The green push button goes with the cross, the blue with the plug. You just turn it or rotate around. This one comes with a dual flush, 1 or 2. You can adjust how much water you want to fill into this tank by turning this right to add more water or left to add less water, and adjust that little bobber in there. Push it down, you can hear it. This adjusts the water flow coming into here, which actually fills the bowl. The sit-down bowl, the water that fills in here comes in the bottom of this guy. So you have sort of a race going on. Is this one going to fill before you want enough of water to go into here? And you can make that adjustment with this. On this guy, you have 2 more adjustments. One is how much water you're going out with the blue one when you're hitting the number 1 handle here, and down here on the green side, how much water you're going out to go out with the number 2 button. My suggestion is try the defaults that come in the box, see how it works, and then work backwards. So, looks like we have success and no more water running down the hall. Got to make sure this fits over the top. No interference. We're good to go. One double check. That's not going to affect anything, and that's not going to hit this. Everything's in its own spot.